there's a story in every bottle. Good. Choose the right thing.
Oh! Here we go.
We're gonna.
Here we go.
Do you think we'll figure this technology out?
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Oh no, wait a minute. I'm the only one with wine.
I know.
Two rules.
Chuck has been
I
traveling.
leave for 3 weeks and come back, and I get the wine.
You get to drink wine.
So
the rest
cheers,
of us
everybody
are-
out there.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what he's drinking?
What am I drinking?
You're drinking a wine that we made in 2008.
It's cloudy.
It's cloudy.
It's cloudy.
It's getting down lower in the bottle now. It wasn't that cloudy when we first
Yeah.
poured.
It's
Oh,
almost
okay.
15 years old.
It's almost 15 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm drinking it.
And you're drinking it.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
That is impressive.
That's impressive.
Because Ken doesn't like it at all.
No, I don't drink
It's
it anymore.
probably not the best wine we've ever made.
No, I agree. I agree.
But that's just
But it's
fine. The fact that
15
you're
years
still
It was one of
able
the
to drink
first
it.
wines.
It's one of the
It's like
earliest
It's
ones.
like one of those early paintings that you look at and you're like, what was I
What was I
thinking? What was
thinking?
I doing here? You know, an
I ought to
early
take a
creation.
painting class.
An early creation. So that was an early painting class for us.
That was when we had the 15-foot 2x4
Oh, yeah, I
on the
remember that.
press,
Oh,
and we were
darn.
just
Well,
cranking on it.
And in our defense, that this wine is still
Holding
drinkable
up.
in
Oh,
15
yeah.
I was
years.
gonna say, so
Probably
from-
won another 20.
From
Yeah.
a younger perspective, then you can see, oh, this is the artist's early work, and it's very impressive.
Ah, so when your wines are at Sotheby's,
There we go.
that bottle will be worth twice as much as everything
Millions of
else.
dollars.
Probably not.
So, I don't
Probably
think so.
not. Yeah.
So let's
Because
get,
even though
you know,
Picasso is a Picasso, it's still, if it's just a little, oh no, I guess it's still worth money, even if it's just a little.
if he just like,
that was a good thing
like
about that.
dropped the drop of paint on a piece of canvas, it'd be,
there it
that's, it's a Picasso, it's worth millions. Your wines
Not for
will be,
winemakers.
your wines will be that
Not
way
for
too
winemakers.
someday.
Yeah.
So, but I need to get some wine in my glass. So let's get through the particulars quickly so that we can get some wine in our glass.
Forget the particulars, let's get the wine going.
Right. You
Well,
take care of that.
let
I'll
me-
deal with the
I'll-
particulars.
Yeah,
I'll pour
Ken
wine
can
while
pour.
you get to the
Yeah,
particulars.
just so you know, you're not on the camera most of the time.
Huh?
So I told you you
I
had to
can
scoot
be a
over.
voice from the side.
Yeah. So if you would like to subscribe to our channel, which we would like you to do, underneath Ken, if you're on YouTube, right underneath Ken is a subscribe channel. And we'd love it if you'd subscribe to our channel. And if you're on Facebook, there's a little bell on the screen and you want to hit that bell. And if you subscribe, you will be notified whenever we go live on YouTube or Facebook. And we would love that because not only do we go live every Monday at 5:30, we also go live from tops of mountains and out in the ocean and wherever else. And we'd love to be able to connect with you during those times. And we're going to get to that, Chuck. So hold off. So then the other thing I'd like to say is if you are joining us today and you've never joined us before, we'd love it if you'd like our broadcast. Share it with your friends if you think your friends would like to hear what we have to say. And maybe you don't know, but maybe by the end of the broadcast, you will know. So you can let your friends know. And if you are joining us, please let us comment. Let us know you're here. Say hello. We'll know you're watching. And if you have questions, please ask your questions in the comment section. And either Marika will answer them right on the spot, or we will get to them live when we can during the broadcast. So I think I covered everything. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And
What about the-
Wait a minute. Where we?
I did that under
we
Ken.
missed it.
You were
I
distracted by
You
your
missed it.
by your
Under
pour.
Ken, you guys were trying to
Oh,
distract me, and I was
If you
If
ignoring
you
you.
want us to, if you're watching YouTube, push the button.
Push the button
right there.
right there.
We
Yeah.
like that part. That's our favorite part of the show. It's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
downhill from here.
No,
Oh no?
no, I like this.
This,
Yeah.
this is my favorite part of the show. Yeah. So the show, what are we talking about today? So we're talking about the club. Everybody, not everybody, but probably half of you, our club members, have already received our club book because you picked up your wine. And in our club book, we have a detailed description of each of the wines that we released, which are all right in front of you. And if you continue to have interest after looking at the wines, we have the story of some of the important parts of how we came to be a music venue. I mean,
I love that story. I like that one a lot.
It was great. And actually, a few weeks ago, we did a show when the two of us were here. We did a show
About
kind of
this,
talking
that's right,
about
that's right,
that
we
story.
did.
So if you
Yes.
go back in our posted videos, you can
you can learn all
get
about
that
it.
part of the story. But
Yeah.
today we're talking about the wine part of the story.
This is, yes. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about the story part of the story, and now we're talking about the
So
wine.
by wine, you mean we're going to be complaining a lot about how hard it was to start a music venue
That's
and how
with
much
an
it
H.
cost to build this
Whining.
Whining.
whiny.
Yes.
Whining.
This is a
Today
different
we're talking
wine.
about
This is a
wine.
different wine. We're going to talk about drinking wine.
Drinking wine.
So there'll
Oh.
be no complaining.
And guess what?
What?
We have to enjoy with our
got some
wine.
snacks.
Oh my goodness, look at that.
Look at this.
You
I'm gonna
don't
pour it.
slide that
Travis.
onto the floor.
Put together these two really fabulous flatbread pizzas.
Hand tossed.
Yeah. Hand
dough.
Hand
Homemade,
tossed, yeah.
homemade, not even hand
Mhm.
tossed, homemade, from
Everything.
stem to stir. I mean,
Homemade everything.
He
Stem
makes
to
his own dough.
stir.
Yeah, his own dough. He makes his own dough, his own recipe. Fancy organic flour, and I have to say,
It's really,
Yay,
really
Travis.
super
So this is
cool.
the two. Yeah. So
go
over
Travis.
here, this is the Copa pizza, which has copa and red onions, blue cheese, and red sauce.
That's so cool. Red
And I
onion. I
believe-
haven't had red onion on pizza. What's that one?
That I believe is the autumn
Autumn
squash. So
Autumn
that one
squash.
has caramelized
Yeah,
onions,
that's really good.
mushrooms, a sort of just slightly spicy squash
Would you like a piece?
sauce.
Could
I
be
would
even
love a
spicier.
piece.
I like the spice. Before I'm gonna eat this pizza,
I'm just
though, I'm gonna
They're stuck
tell you a
together.
little bit about
darn.
what
Oh, just
wines
grab two. Why don't
in
you?
our- Yeah. you
Well,
should.
There were
You don't wanna
probably
fight.
8
Yeah,
slices.
you don't want. You
I
don't
know.
want
That's what I said. Just go.
I did.
Go.
How come you didn't even take one, Bob?
I did.
oh, leftovers.
Do we know?
Down this side.
I actually think so. This I think might
So I
actually
would
go
suggest
well enough with
before
the.
you have your pizza. you
Yes,
have
yes.
some wine.
So first of all, we have 6 wines that have been released for the club. Was there any overall overarching thinking about this particular 6 wines, or you sort of pick it at one at a time? Or
It's really fun. Every release is different. Part of it, quite honestly, is dictated by what I have enough.
what's available?
for all of our club
You need a
members
lot.
to make sure that we have enough. And the other is to find some balance, some things that they may not have had before, but certainly picking those wines that are truly the favorites that people enjoy. So we do have a 2-bottle-a-month club where I steer from the sort of main flagship wines and jump into some of the more esoteric, experimental sort of things. So these are more of our. You're right there.
I haven't been wine tasting.
You've just been wine drinking, I know.
Or whining?
Just wine.
You're out of practice. That inhaling part to get that retronasal, it's not supposed to go into your lungs. It's supposed to go down your throat.
But you get that big lung burn, and it's
Yeah.
really.
And you like that? So I didn't think so.
Don't try this at home.
So this is a wine that I put in quite a few clubs. This is our Lake House White. And I really, really like this one a lot. I love how it's evolved and changed over the years. It still is the same 4 components: peaches, rhubarb, rose hips, and quince. These are all locally derived. But every vintage is a little different, and mostly, well, 2 main things. One is the source of the materials, and the second is how those materials are handled. So I keep progressing and changing how I work with rose hips, let's say, how I pick them, how I ripen them, how I process them. The peaches come from different sources, and we've been moving towards better and better tasting and sources for peaches over time. The rhubarb varies, but it usually includes an heirloom variety that came from England, this Whitney rhubarb. It's a very skinny pink
It
rhubarb.
was grown by our mustard guy.
And no, it's grown by Bob Perkins
Oh,
at
Bob,
Bottom Hill
okay.
Farm, where you got the peaches originally.
Yes.
Oh.
His father brought that over from England, or grandfather.
Yeah.
And then the quince is mostly from Allison's Orchard,
Oh,
where
where
Homer
yeah.
runs that.
Hiking
But I go through Nan. She is the Vermont
Source.
quince person.
She's
She
the queen of
brokers all the
quince.
I met her at a McDonald's parking lot this last week to pick up the quince.
She hasn't changed.
I pulled into the parking lot. She was there ahead of me. She says, "Don't worry, you'll know where I am." And sure enough, I pull in. I just have the sunroof open, and I could smell quince driving through the parking lot.
Wow.
She had her windows rolled down, and it was just emanating quince aroma. It was amazing. I pulled up right next to her.
That is quince.
So this is the 19 vintage, although we are shifting into the 20 vintage. So this is this one is going out, and the 20 is coming in.
This is drinking better and better. It's really changing in the bottle. It's rounding out.
Yep.
Coming together. Yes, softer.
Unless you're inhaling.
That's still pretty soft. I love that. I like, yeah, man, bring it on.
So how does it go with the pizza?
Oh my God.
Good?
No, that's great.
Better than I thought. I thought this pizza might be too flavorful
heavy?
for it, but
Yeah.
That's what I thought too. Is it okay?
it's all right.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in this wine, though. There's a lot of flavor.
Yeah, there really is.
Oh,
I had a white burgundy the other night.
It holds up nice.
Oh, the tanginess out of the quince, I think, goes
Yeah.
with the onion.
I think in the end, the pizza wins out,
Mm-hmm.
but the balance isn't so out of whack that you.
No, because I'm still tasting
I'm
this
still-
wine, even though I've swallowed the pizza's gone,
Yeah.
I'm still tasting the wine. It's holding up really nice.
We suggested Winnie White in the initial pairing
Mm,
for this when we did the
Oh.
tasting
Yeah,
dinner.
that's right. Yeah.
We did it with
which
Winnie
has
White.
some similar characteristics
Yep.
from this.
Mm-hmm.
Nicely done.
And yes, Matt
Cheers,
Matt is
Travis.
bringing up the
Yeah, cheers to Travis.
the classic pairing, our go-to pairing for Lake House White is mussels.
Oh,
For sure.
And you should
There's
make
a
the
great
mussels with
recipe.
it.
Yes, exactly. That uses it in it. But yeah, this works out well. And I think he did balance well it's tough to make a sauce spicy. And they wanted to put a little bit of spice in there, but we didn't want to scare off people that don't like spice, and finding that balance
This
took a
is,
bit, but it
It goes really nicely.
this
They
is,
found
and
it.
it's a remarkable pizza. Think about a squash
Oh, I know.
based pizza. It's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had anything quite like it. I'm really enjoying it.
We've got a question from Vermont, from Kyle,
Mhm.
asking, how do you process the quince? Once you get them, they're fresh. A lot of fruit you get is
Yeah.
frozen sometimes, but
So-
these are fresh and whole. And what do you
So
do?
they show up fresh, and they're Homer grows a variety of quince called a pineapple quince, which can be quite large, almost the size of a softball. Some of them. They're very hard. They have a sort of like a fuzz on them, which is a natural deterrent to insects, which is nice. So the farmers don't have to spray them for anything. This little fuzz on them keeps insects off. And I usually wait until they become fully yellow. So when they're picked a little unripe, they're a greenish or green yellow. And I wait till they're a brilliant yellow. And that's where they seem to be at their peak aroma. And some of the bitter astringency has dropped off in the flavor profile. Unfortunately, as they come up to that full ripeness, sometimes they can develop these brown spots on their surface. And it's a bacteria or something that's getting on there and starting to deteriorate the quality of the fruit. And it actually goes into the fruit like a bruise. And so it browns out the fruit, and the flavor of that fruit doesn't taste very good. So some of them, if they get too much of a brown spot, I have to cut that off and get rid of it and keep the rest of the fruit. So I take the fruit full up to ripeness, and then I chop it up and put it in a bag and freeze it. And then once all of the fruit has come to ripeness, chopped up and in the freezer, then I take it back out, thaw it, and ferment it.
So
And
chop it
then-
up. Are you just like sitting down there with a knife and a cutting board, cutting
Yeah.
into like quarters?
Yeah, just knife and a cutting board. Sometimes if the setting is right, like this last week, when I picked up 5 bushels from Nan, I went through all 5 bushels, found a bushel that was fully ripe. I had my hard cider, the kitten's hard cider,
Yep.
fermenting. So I chopped those up and ground them, used the slicer dicer for the apples, right into the ferment.
Wow.
So timing just hit right.
Is that in the- is that recent? No.
So that was just this week.
Oh, is that what's downstairs now?
I pressed it this morning, yeah. So
Oh, I was wondering. I looked in the vat and I saw this. It looked like apple, but it was
It was
quince.
quince, yeah. So there was apples and I just added quince on Wednesday or Thursday. So the quince goes into our hard cider, our heirloom hard cider, and to Lake House White. We also did a roasted quince mead a few years ago, which was fun too.
Quince is such a great fruit.
It is great.
It's really fun.
It turns out my grandson Lonan loves eating quince.
Straight quince?
Straight. It's quite a
Don't they?
but he also
Wouldn't
eats
it
unripe
make you sick if you?
persimmons.
I thought I read that somewhere that it would
I don't know.
give you a stomach ache, but
Does-
in
does
small
quince
doses.
give you a stomach ache? If you
Or-
No, I ate quite a bit of it. He ate.
Okay. Yeah,
I know
I definitely. I was
elderberry,
gonna say,
that's
I've
the case.
definitely had it before.
Elderberries can.
Yeah, if they're not cooked right.
elderberries, yeah.
That was good.
All right, so we
All right,
got
we're gonna move on. That
we
was
got
quite-
5 more wines to go through. That was the Lake House White. Is that the first one on the list?
It is.
Let's go to one of the reds.
It is.
Yeah.
Lake House White,
It
one of the
should be
reds.
in tasting order.
All right.
Elderberry wine.
Elderberry.
Oh, that's not in tasting order. I don't know. Elderberry and
Hermitage.
Hermitage is the
They're
order
next
that
to
it is
each
on
other. They're very
the.
similar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you probably could do Hermitage and Elderberry, swap that order, couldn't you?
You probably could.
But Hermitage is what's next.
So actually, the elderberry. There you go, Chuck. The elderberry is actually sort of left over from creating Hermitage, if you will. I never know what sort of balance is going to work perfectly in the Hermitage. So I make elderberry, I make blackberry, I make blueberry, I make blackberry, and then I blend those together. And sometimes I end up with more elderberry, which I don't want to run low on it, so I tend to make a little extra. And I end up with some blueberries. So those get blended together and go into our elderberry wine. So this is the goal,
This is
to
Hermitage.
do this blend for the Hermitage. And let's try the cocoa with this.
Oh, I was going to say
Yeah.
this
This has
is
got this spicy, earthy, aromatic to it from the elderberry and the other fruits. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Karen is enjoying a glass of elderberry right now.
Oh, great.
Yeah, certainly. Share with us what you're drinking out there, audience. And
I was talking to my old buddy from United Airlines, who actually one of my first flight instructors, and he's a Czech airman on the Airbus on my drive home today, and this is his favorite one,
The Hermitage?
and he's upset because it's not the liquor store.
It's not.
He has to drive all the way up here. And I said, well,
Yeah.
you can come visit.
you can buy it online.
And you buy it online.
You can buy it online. I think it's better to come here in person.
Mhm.
You should come to I told him to come to the jazz show on Thursday
That would be
and
good.
stock up on Hermitage.
Mhm.
So this is the 2018 vintage. And I remember when this was assembled and bottled back in 2020, right around COVID time, when the pandemic first came down. And it struck me when I was blending these barrels, even though the wine had been in barrels for 2 years, it was really young. Really fruit forward, really racy, really spicy, a little bit sour, tangy. We blended it together, we bottled it up, and then it's been aging in these bottles. And it's really starting to soften and integrate. I still think it's young for what it is. So I would, for those that have this, I would even hold on
5
to it
more
for a
years.
little while. Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as this batch is quite tart.
Yeah. This batch, and I think it was the blackberries this year in 2018 were a tangier blackberry. It was the first time I was working with fruit out of New Jersey.
That's
Prior to that, I was getting fruit all the way out from the West Coast.
Just
And I
right.
wanted to bring it at least to the East Coast. I'm still trying to find a blackberry source local. And
Does Robert still bring you blackberries?
no, he doesn't. I did have a guy who was wild foraging around here for blackberries. And but I've been able to work with the New Jersey supplier through a couple of different farms down there to gravitate towards fruit that I like a little better. And so each year I've been working better on that.
This is what I've chosen as my Hermit Woods library wine. Of course, I'd love to keep everything, but I have now, several vintages of Hermitage laying down.
And this wine for me is a food wine. You find the right
Definitely.
pairing.
Well
I mean,
with
it goes well with this. This wine becomes so much more enjoyable when
Oh,
it's
yeah, this goes
balanced.
fine with this. I was thinking it was going to work with this, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
With the salt and the oil
yeah.
and that tanginess.
And because it's young and it does have a little tartness to it, put this wine in your mouth with the right foods, and the wine actually helps balance the intensity of the food, and it brings out both, and that's what's supposed to happen.
That's what I find a lot with this wine, because it is, it's one of our biggest, boldest reds. It's often too dry and too tannic for a lot of people. So on the tasting menu, it's some people's favorite easily, and it's other people's. Oh no, that's not my style. But I found when we were doing our wine and cheese tasting at the
and
tasting
cheese,
bar,
Yeah.
we pair the Hermitage with the Harmon's aged cheddar, topped with a little bit of the Waz balsamic fig mostarda, and that completely changes the game. Someone that normally wouldn't enjoy Hermitage, they have it with that cheese and that spread, and it creates this interesting balance. You get a little bit of the sweet from the spread and some spice, and
Take a bite of that, and chew it just a little bit, and then pour the wine over top of it.
Yeah.
And marry the two in your mouth. It's really amazing.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I like blue cheese.
the blue cheese goes really nicely.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this is a food wine. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
On its own, it's heavy, it's strong, it's a little acidic, but boy, it can balance out the food so nicely because it has
Every
that
vintage is
intensity.
a little different. I mean, I'm sure people, I do notice a lot that when I'm trying to figure out a wine, it ricochets for a few vintages. So I'm getting a little bit off this way, I'm getting a little bit off that way, I'm getting off this way, and so slowly converge. And so the Red Scare back in 12, 13, 14, 15 was ricocheting quite a bit. And 17 things came together, and then since that time, I've just been nuancing it a little bit, but it's pretty much on track where I want it, where I like it. And Lake House Red ricocheted up until 20, which we haven't released yet. But 20 finally brought it in. And so 20 and 21, same with Hermitage. So you guys don't even know what's coming down the chute yet. But the ricochet on Hermitage and Lake House Red are now gone. And they've come in to alignment. These earlier vintages all have unique flavors and great interest to them historically. And I think they're going to take longer to come into where they are because they're slightly positioned off where they can be. I just haven't been able to figure out where they can be.
So actually, that's an interesting thought now. So the vintage, of course, is the year the fruit was harvested. So does that mean, so we're currently drinking 18 Hermitage.
Right.
Does that mean in existence right now, in varying stages of production, there is 2018 Hermitage,
19,
there's
20,
19 in
21.
bottles, probably ready to be released once 18 is gone.
Actually, both 19 and 20 are in bottles.
19 and 20 are in bottles. And then 21 is probably still in a barrel.
21 is in barrel,
And 22
is now in barrel.
is now in barrels. That's really cool to think about, that there's
So
that much Hermitage sort of
Right.
in
Right.
different stages right now.
We should have seen the mind-blowing experience when we first opened the winery, and we were putting wine in tanks and barrels, and we were realizing, wow, we're not going to be able to sell this for a year or more.
Where do we put it?
We're making wine, and we're like, it's going to be next year.
Woo!
Wow.
Northern Berry wants to get drunk.
Oh, that was the Northern Berry Red.
Right. That's what she said.
All right, I can't wait. Sorry, I've got to go to this Elderberry because I haven't.
So
had this.
yeah, this is exciting.
time.
We might have a bottle of the 18 open right here if you wanted the direct comparison, but we do have a bunch of wine. So this is a tough one in a way because some of you might have the 18 Hermitage or 18 Elderberry. Some of you might have the 19. I think you swapped mid release.
It was about mid. That's right, and they're quite similar, the vintages. But what I really like is to have this immediately after Hermitage because this tells you where you get that spiciness in the Hermitage.
Yes.
And the amount of elderberry in Hermitage is very small. It's between 8 and 12%.
Wow.
Total.
Wow.
Oh, fun.
Mm.
Before we get quite into elderberry, Maz has a fun comment that he whips Hermitage with butter and makes a Hermitage butter for scones. That's really good. I've had his
Oh, that sounds great.
He's so creative.
Yeah.
You know, our viewers can't see this right now, but shining down on us is like absolutely
yeah,
gorgeous
beautiful full moon.
full
Isn't-
moon.
yeah, I think it's full tonight or
Shining in
tomorrow.
through the window.
I'm too far
It
up.
looks pretty full. It may
Yeah.
not be, but it was a phenomenal one, guys. I did see it.
So,
You know, what Matt just said, though, brings to mind something, a comment I want to make. It might be fun to have, for Travis to explore some sort of a Hermitage or elderberry-based marinara,
Mm-hmm.
or
so he does his short ribs in
Mhm.
Lake House Red.
oh, I didn't know
I
that.
know he doesn't advertise it. I'm like, yeah. He says, oh yeah, I got a bottle of Lake House Red and half a bottle of Red Scare in there. I'm like,
Those
wow,
short
well,
ribs are
They're
so
so good.
good. That's
It's
why.
beautiful when he puts it together. I'm like, we should have this on the menu. You should see it with this tray and these ribs, and he's got these herbs and these onions.
It's
and
beautiful,
this
yeah.
wine going in. We got to get photographs of this. It's art in motion. It's awesome.
If you haven't tried, what are they called? They're the
The braised short rib.
braised
crostini.
short rib crostini. If
Yeah.
you have not tried
I
that,
know. I order it every time I come up here.
it's to die for. Oh my God.
And now we know the secret.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know the secret. No wonder.
Secret's
Yeah.
out, everybody.
That adds some of that
There you go.
tanginess
Yeah.
that then marries with the Waz cherry
Yeah.
compote that he puts on
It's
top.
got a little bit of a tang to it too, and some sweetness to balance it.
So I really like. Where
Oh,
this-
here's a
where this
good
elderberry is.
good question from Karen, and that we can share with everybody. So she's wondering how does she know if it's a 2018 or a 2019? Can you hold up those bottles? That's how you can tell. So everybody has a Hermitage and an elderberry. If your Hermitage and elderberry bottles are the same shape, then you have a 2018 elderberry. If your elderberry bottle is a thicker, shorter bottle, it is a 2019 elderberry. Correct?
I,
Oh.
if you notice that, that's great.
So that's
have
what
had
I've seen.
troubles sourcing bottles consistently, and so we've had different size bottles, but
Okay.
I.
So far, all the 19 elderberry I've seen has been in those bottles.
Well, you would
In
have.
this one.
They would have been any given vintage would have been all in the same bottle.
Nope.
No, not necessarily.
No.
Okay.
I wish it were that way.
For the most part.
So
Well,
so
at
here,
least
this
we
is
know
a great
if you
opportunity.
have that
That
bottle,
makes
it's
sense.
definitely a
That
19.
does make sense, Marika, because typically I'm bottling Hermitage and elderberry at the same time, and I get the same bottles, and I bottle them up. So seeing these different makes sense if that's a 19 for elderberry.
So one of the things that's important to talk about at this point is that at the current moment, it is illegal for us to put the date of the wine on the bottle.
Oh, I know. Otherwise
So
we would. It would
otherwise
be
we
great.
would. So the reason that this is unfortunately a
That's good
struggle
point. Right.
is because the federal government at this moment, it's against the rules to put a vintage on a fruit wine. You can only put a vintage on a grape wine. However, I have spoken to the National Winery Association, and that is on their agenda. They have identified that as something that is a valid concern, and they're going to. They said they would work with us and some other wineries who feel the same way to try and lobby Congress to create some changes to the TTB laws,
I think
either
that's
Congress
great.
or the laws. So if we have our way within the next 5 years or so, we will get the rules, the TTB rules changed to allow us to put the vintage, because there's no reason we shouldn't be able to.
Historically, I think a lot of it was for fruit wine. They were always non-vintage because people weren't really concerned with the terroir, with the nuance of that particular season on that fruit, because the wine was not made in a fashion that would help showcase the true depth and character of the fruit. So it was done in a way, maybe a mixture of lots of fruit from different orchards that were pureed or worked with. The wine was made in a quicker fashion, not building tannic structure or things that would help it age. And then they were back sweetening it and putting it out as a fun, easy drinking, sweeter fruit wine.
Exactly.
It's great, and people love it. they drink it, they make sangria out of it, off we go. Grape wines are concerned with the vintage because they're usually showcasing a particular vineyard, a particular year, a particular grape varietal, and they've crafted that wine to show the true characteristics of that fruit that year.
So
And that's what we're trying to do with our fruit.
there's two other variables. When we first talked about, we'd meet with other fruit winemakers in New Hampshire, we would say we want to lay our wines down in the cellar, and you simply don't do that. You don't lay a fruit wine down. And really, for the most part, for the reasons you just described, people aren't laying fruit wines down to be aged in their cellar.
Mhm.
They're meant to be consumed young. So there's less importance to having a vintage on a wine that you're going to buy and drink right away.
Mm-hmm.
And the other variable that plays into this is the drawing a blank. I just had a second thought that was really critical to why it's more important now than it was before. Oh, that's why. So in the grape wine world, there are various ways in which our government, and this is a good thing, gives preferential treatment to certain segments of the market, so that there's clarity around if people who spend the time to plant a vineyard and grow that vineyard and make the wine from that vineyard,
Right.
that they get credit in the sale of that wine for that effort.
Right.
So vintage is like one of those things. It's not that thing, but it's
No, that's good.
like
That's a
that.
good point. Right.
It's giving credit to an industry that has spent hundreds of years developing itself, and then all of a sudden this fruit wine industry comes along and they want to differentiate. So
It's like being able to say-
differentiation.
An estate wine.
Yes,
You have to grow the fruit right.
you have to grow it there on your spot. So that's, I think there's something that playing into this. I don't know what. I'm speculating a little bit.
For us, though, we're trying to craft wines and develop wines that are more along those classic lines.
Yeah. And we're the only ones doing
showcasing
it.
That particular year, that lake house white, those peaches, those rose hips, the rhubarb, and the quince were all harvested in that year. They were fermented in that year. They were combined, and that is that vintage.
Right. They deserve a date.
I promise
Call
you.
your Congress people.
I promise you.
Everybody.
We before it's said and done, we will get vintages on our.
Is that on the ballot?
It's on my
tomorrow
list.
morning?
It's on the ballot.
Tuesday.
Not
Yeah.
tomorrow morning. I
When
wish
you
it
vote
was.
tomorrow, vote for Hermitage.
It may not need to be on the ballot. It may just be a rule change. I mean, if
There
we
you
get enough momentum behind it, they may be able to make a rule change. But
That's good.
I don't know what components of these laws are
Right.
ingrained in the law, and which ones are ingrained in the rules. But anyway, we're needing to move on though, timing wise.
What's
So where are we
That's
next?
good because this is going to be a fun wine to have with our pizza.
Is that next on the list?
This
in
is
the,
next on the list. Well, I don't know. Let's
Strawberry
see.
rhubarb.
Yes, strawberry
Nice.
rhubarb.
Okay.
I haven't had this wine in quite a while.
You can smell it from here.
It's really yummy.
It's yummy wine. This is your best vintage of this yet, too.
You say that every time.
I know. Well, you keep getting better. What can I say?
This is a 2020,
This is 2021.
2021.
2022 is in the tank and will be bottled in the spring.
So again, another point of fact here, 99% of the wines made in the world were made to be drank. They're made to be bought and consumed. 98, 99%, almost all wines. So if you,
Well, what do you mean
vintage,
to say there isn't a short? All wine is meant to be bought and consumed.
no, but not aged, the difference.
Aged,
So
okay.
the majority of wine that is made in the world is made not to be laid down in a cellar. It's made to be bought and consumed, which is really good because that's what 99% of the population wants to do. They want to buy their wine, bring it home, and eat it.
Can I trade you for one of those?
So you should try this with your last bite of this pizza. Of that one. It's real good.
Do you need something?
No, I don't know. No.
You have some.
I've had two
you
of that
need
one
of
already.
those?
Oh, okay. Oh, how are we doing? Everybody get some?
Everybody got some, right?
It's your second piece. So most wine is meant to be drank, not aged. really is true. And people get confused. You know, they'll.
And
I
this
hear
is one of those wines.
it's meant to be
It's to be
drank.
consumed.
It's to be consumed.
Yeah.
Drink it
Yeah.
up. This is not going to be around 5 years from now, or it's not going to taste like it should.
That's so fruity.
That's the aroma, the strawberry aroma. It's just like you stuck your face in a basket of strawberries.
Yeah,
It's
it really
really amazing. So, which is this going to go better, the white pizza or the red pizza?
I thought white,
I
and
think
it does
that
go
one-
very nicely
I
with the
think
white.
red one. I just tried them both. But, you know, taste is all for the individual.
subjective. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Actually, I've got our menu. What do we suggest pairing strawberry rhubarb with? Is it on here?
How about our strawberry rhubarb salad? Or
That was a
strawberry
summer salad.
So that
We
was-
might not have strawberry rhubarb as a suggested pairing right now.
I don't feel like it goes well with the
Mm.
squash pizza.
I might like it.
It's
No,
too,
me
it's
neither.
it's competing
Mhm.
too much. There's too
I
much
get that.
competing. It's not bad. It doesn't hurt the squash, and the squash doesn't hurt the strawberry. But they are competing. One is wanting to
I
be
think it goes
fruity.
with the cocoa
One is
butter.
wanting to be
Yeah.
savory. It's just it's a different
The
experience.
wine-
It's just good. It's just good on its own.
It's a
This
fun
is one-
thing.
You talk about how Hermitage kind of doesn't need food, but it's much better with a
Much
good
better
food
with
pairing.
food. Yeah.
Strawberry rhubarb.
It's
There are
better on-
certainly
I think
things-
it's better on its own.
Yeah, there are certainly things that you can pair with strawberry rhubarb. Yeah, Matt says ice cream.
I think
I love it with a good summer salad,
it's
but
fine.
on
It's
its
okay
own.
for washing it down, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't.
No, it
Add
didn't
to
take anything away from either from me.
Right.
But I think that the wine itself is just such a stellar flavor bomb that it's just, by itself is totally fine.
I'm
One
with
of-
you,
one-
Chuck. I didn't think it.
Yeah.
It wasn't an ideal complement to either of the pizzas. I think it. I absolutely agree. It's much better to enjoy on its own.
Yeah.
And there might be some things that it is a good complement to. I don't know what it is at the moment, but I'm thinking something fresh.
A good,
and-
yeah, the
and
fresh like
fruity
summery
and
salad.
Salad,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Salad with a
One of the things that
marshmallow.
I like about this wine is it's kind of cloaked. You smell it and you go, oh, strawberry, fresh fruity thing. And then you dig in on it and yes, it's a fresh fruity thing, but it's also got all of these layers to it. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in this
This
wine
is a very
that
complex
you could just toss it back and it's great. It's easy drinking. But if you think about it a moment, there's actually a lot going on in this wine. And it's interesting now for me to taste it 6 months after it's been in the bottle, and things have come together nicely.
It's just strawberry and rhubarb
Strawberry, rhubarb, and some blueberries.
and some blueberries as well. And the blueberries are for color or
They're
for
both color and flavor.
This is such. I
Mostly
always. I don't tend to drink a lot of rosé. I don't tend to drink semi-sweet wines generally, and so I don't drink this often. But every time I do, I say, why not?
Yeah.
Why don't I have this at my table more often?
Yeah.
It's really good.
well, yeah. So this has been very popular with our people who come to do tastings, right? It
Mm.
sells very well.
So we usually run out of this wine.
Mhm.
So this is one of our wines where people come in and they're like so disappointed they can't get strawberry rhubarb.
Yeah, we
So-
ran out at club release time last year. I remember.
So
yeah.
we're not running out anymore.
What?
We're not running out
Record that
anymore.
because that's recorded, right? We're
Mhm.
recording this. Good.
Knock
Thank
on
you.
bar.
So we're working with a local farm that produces a tremendous amount of the best strawberries I've ever had. It's Hemingway Farm in the state, and I'm working directly with the farmer now, and it's fantastic. So,
But you know we're releasing a new strawberry rhubarb.
well,
wine
I was
soon.
getting there too. Yes. So
So careful what you say.
because well, we just have to buy more tanks and we need to do more.
We could raise the building another story.
We could do some underground silos.
Oh, underground.
you
We
know.
could go down.
Yeah, I like. Remember when we had some designs of building a winery on your property? And
Yeah.
We were going to dig into the
Yeah,
earth,
yeah.
and then
Have
we are going to
caves.
put cement tanks
Yeah.
in there
Mhm.
that were in the earth.
I
act
just
as a
wish
heat.
that we did that before we paved our new parking lot.
We could have done it.
Could have done that. Yeah.
We should have at least put a bottle
For an
of deep
extra
blue in there.
$100,000.
We should have put a bottle of deep blue in the gravel. I wish I'd done that.
Yes. Yeah, that would be-
There is a
We had
bottle
we
of
had
our
to
wine.
look at
There is a bottle of our wine in the
downstairs,
floors.
in
No,
the
right?
tasting room.
Yeah, downstairs in the tasting room, in the
Yeah.
floor of the
Yeah.
tasting room. Yes,
Yeah, I think it's a
Deep Blue
2013
Reserve.
Deep Blue Reserve.
Yep. Buried in the rafters.
That'll be fun for somebody.
All right, we need to keep moving here because
Yeah.
this is so easy to get.
We have a
distracted on.
question while you're
Sure.
pouring.
Yeah.
I was trying to answer it on my own, but couldn't quite remember the numbers. Kyle's asking, what's the typical perceived sweetness of your wines? So I know most of our wines are finished quite dry, so less than 1% residual sugar. But I know some get a little higher.
No, he
And
said
but then
perceived
yeah, so
sweetness.
I want to give him what the actual sweetness is, and then we can talk about perceived sweetness
Because
because
they're
that's
very
different. So most are less than 1%. A few of the rosés are, and is it Petit Blue has a touch more?
Petit Blue's dry.
That's still dry. It has a little residual sugar. It's not zero.
Right, so they all vary, and
How about Strawberry Rhubarb?
Wait a minute, before you answer that, no, let's go over the review. A dry wine in the United States, or I think anywhere, a dry wine is 0.9% residual sugar or less.
0.9%.
So any wine at 0.9% residual sugar or less is considered a dry wine. Any wine from 1% to 4% residual sugar is considered a semi-dry or semi-sweet wine.
So
Anything beyond 4% is considered a sweet wine.
I thought there were 4 categories, so you skipped one.
No, well, that's
So
the only ones I
0.9
know
to
of.
0.18.
I didn't know that.
Semi-dry,
one. Okay.
and then 0.18 to 0.45, I think it is.
I'm going to research this because I should know this. I talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
So
And then you go
we'll get
over
back
that.
so
to you.
we have most of ours are less than 1%.
Right.
We have a few that are like
So some categories, and I believe that's British standard is what we're talking about
Okay.
here, rate it on measured residual sugars in the wine. But the perception of sweetness has to do with how much acidity is in that.
so yeah, the perception is very different.
So the perception is really the key in a wine for it to be balanced. And then once you go past balance into sweetness, then you're going down that road of sweetness.
What's the residual sugar in like the dessert wines?
So in numeric values,
Not perceived
the
by the actual.
strawberry, that vintage I believe was 2% or 2.25% residual sugar. The rosé, which has a higher acid level, drinks a little drier, is actually at 3.5%. The crabapple varies, but it's usually around 3%. The northern berry red is also around 3%, which is the next one we're going into. But they have that balance. The strawberry actually seems a little sweeter than the rosé, even though it has less residual sugar. It's because of that acid balance.
Because of that high and that very strawberry aroma.
The rhubarb is pretty acidic.
And the rhubarb is very acidic, but it's a very small percentage.
Or I find a lot of time all of our meads, they are again they're dry by the numbers, but
Right.
people are so used to associating that flavor of honey
You
with
smell honey, you
sweetness.
go,
Oh, it's so sweet.
Right.
Yep.
Like, what's the residual sugar of the blackberry mead? Do you know off your top of your head?
I think it was 0.
Really? That one, yeah, that
Wow,
one
but
tastes sweet.
But it's high alcohol. Because that was going into Red Scare, so it was fermented dry.
Yeah.
And it was going into.
Wow.
I was trying to pull up
But
on my
it's-
phone the
it's
tech notes,
like
and I
15
can't find
it's
it.
Like 15+%.
Well, I know it's
So
higher
that
alcohol.
alcohol gives you that like sweetness of ethanol, but also that lifting heat that comes out.
That's amazing. So to his question. There's such
Perceived
a
sweetness is very
wide
different from
variability
yeah.
around sweetness that has to do with both the actual sweetness and the perceived sweetness, because the two are all over the map. There are some wines that are bone dry and perceived sweet. There are some wines that are sweet and are perceived dry because of the tartness or the tannins that are in
Right.
them.
What
So-
I like to ride, like this Northern Berry Red, I think is a good example, is I taste sweet and sour, sweet and sour, sweet and sour, sweet and sour. And it's like, is it sweet? No, it's sour. No, it's a sour. No, it's sweet. No, so you're riding
While
this
you're-
little,
while
I'm
it's in your
riding
mouth.
right on that edge of that balance. Because if I slip over into sweet, then I got sweet. And I lose all that excitement of the sourness. If I'm too much in the sourness, it's like, it's a little too heavy on the sour. So I'm just begging for a little sweetness to find that balance. Sometimes it's different. Your mouth chemistry is a little different, or you're eating something if we were having dessert with this, this would seem drier.
Well, that's a great point.
If we were having a dry piece of bread, it would seem sweeter.
This is a great point. So everybody in the world knows when you go into the refrigerator and you reach for a jar of pickles, the second you reach for the jar of pickles, your mouth secretes something that tells you you're about to eat a pickle. Am I wrong? Right?
And when you reach for the pepperoncini,
It's the same thing.
you're just
You
it's like
immediately react.
Pavlovian. You're just salivating.
It's really fascinating to me. Before you eat a pickle, your
Mhm.
mouth salivates and
Mhm.
prepares you for that high acidity. Because there's
I
going to be
wonder-
this really high acidity all of a sudden in your mouth. You got to get ready for it.
I'm sure there's already been psychology experiments about this, but I wonder if you were to be able to measure, what people taste in a pickle, for example, and you had someone taste it without knowing they were about to get a pickle versus someone that knows they're about to get a pickle, and how that, salivation or how that perception
It would be different.
changes
There's no
your actual
way
experience
you-
based on what you
As
expect.
soon as you know there's a pickle coming, your mouth secretes
Is
an
preparing
acid.
for the pickle. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a known
You
fact.
know, there are a lot of people working on this to figure it out because they want that bag of potato chips
Oh God, yeah.
to open up just right.
Oh yeah.
So you smell it, going in.
Oh, can I share my favorite chip factoid?
Wow.
To be fair, this has not been confirmed. A friend told me it. I don't know where she got it, but when you get like those like hint of lime Tostitos
Mhm.
or flavored chips in general, but she told me that with those there are two machines. One puts a bit of the limey stuff on, one puts a lot of the limey stuff, and they make a point of throwing in one of those super well coated chips every 10
Fifth
chips
chip
or so.
10 chip.
So because when you get one of those really well-coated chips, that one was so good, and so you keep eating to get another of those. But they only put a certain ratio of the extra chip
You got to
on.
research this before
I
we
don't
go
know.
to the
I might be
next show.
parroting on.
This could be fake news.
It
You
could be
never
fake
know.
news. That's why I did the disclaimer.
You got to, yeah. No,
But I
it's
have
good.
heard.
You should research
I have
that.
heard.
Although that's probably like an industry secret. They
So
never
like
know.
in every case of Red Scare, one of them should be a super Red Scare so
Maybe.
they don't drink all the other 11.
Yes.
It's Red Scare.
I think we
People
should-
are gonna
I think
drink
No,
it
I think
anyway.
we should just make them all really
Just
good.
make them all really good. I don't think you don't need those marketing tricks.
So what is in Northern Berry Red? So
Oh yeah,
Because
we're
I've
all
had to-
just sitting here
I've had
enjoying
to
our
stop.
Northern Berry
What's
without
in
talking
Northern
about it.
I've had to stop eating pizza because we've moved beyond our pizza.
Yeah.
oh no, this one
Yeah.
is really good with that.
With
Oh, I don't
Northern
think so.
Berry Red,
Yeah.
No, I don't think it is.
I do. Oh my God, the sweetness in the
All right.
onion.
And the onion.
and the-
All right.
and the
With the onion.
acidity.
It doesn't
We're
work
gonna
with the-
try
It
it.
doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It
with
didn't
the
work
other-
with the salty of the cocoa.
No, it didn't work with coconut. No,
All right, I'm gonna trust your judgment.
no, it was.
So Northern Berry Red is a blend. We used to make a honeyberry wine.
Yeah, I remember honeyberry.
We had a honeyberry wine. And there's a wonderful fruit from a honeysuckle plant that people either call a hascap berry or a honeyberry. And they grow in cold climates. And there's a great farm right up the road here. And
In North Sandwich
In North
on
Sandwich.
113A. What's the name of the farm?
Great Northern Berries,
Great
right?
Northern Berries or
There's another name,
Wayfair.
Wayfair Farm. Yeah.
Wayfair Farm. And so we made a honeyberry wine for a number of years. Got these berries from Ben there, and he grows them without using any sprays and all this stuff. They're just fantastic. They come in, he picks them at peak ripeness if the birds don't get them first, and freezes them. And when they show up, we time it, so I've got fermenters ready, and Bob and I eat them like candy. These are these frozen.
I was bringing them home and throwing them in smoothies.
You had some too.
I
Great.
love them.
Yeah, it's they're fantastic. But being a cold climate fruit, they're very high in acid. And so making the honeyberry wine, straight honeyberries, I was always challenged with that right acidity. So to find balance, I had to add quite a bit of sugar to it, quite a bit of back sweet.
Yeah.
And then that edge of sweet sour was really tight and narrow. And if you slipped off one way or the other, it's hard to get it right. And one of the things that I found that I could get the upfront perception of that wine to be nicely in balance, but then I would get a bite of acid in the back of my throat. And one day I was experimenting and I took some of our Petite Blue and I took some of our honeyberry and I added a dash of Petite Blue to it. And it still tasted like honeyberry wine, but that back of the throat bite went away.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm like, wow, how's that work?
Yeah.
I don't know how it works, but let's see if we can nail it and dial it down. So 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I made a straight honeyberry, I made a straight blueberry, I made a honeyberry mead, and then I sampled each one of those, and then I figured out how I wanted to blend them.
This was we did a show on this. This
We
was
did a
one of
show
my
on this.
favorite shows I ever
Yeah.
remember. I think I was
We did
Part
it
of
right
it.
over there.
when we were
facing the other way.
mid-renovation.
Sitting right over
We
there.
can try and find it and link it, but there
Oh,
is
yeah.
one where, and you brought up all these different
I brought up
blends.
all
You
the
brought up
different
all the different components, and you walked us
Must have been
through
2020.
this process of how you were kind of coming up with the different blends, and you were giving us the blends that you were considering, and sort of
So this
creating.
is the second vintage of Northern Berry Red. So the first one was a straight blend. And then this vintage, 2021, I knew the math, the components that I used. So I took a certain amount of honey, a certain amount of blueberries, a certain amount of honey berries, a certain amount of sugar and water, and blended those all together and fermented it. And this is what we got. And I've done that again. So my 2022 Northern Berry that's still in tank was made the same way. So now I shortened my ricochet time to converge on something that was tasting nice. So this is still like the honeyberry wine.
It's very much like
Which
it.
you get the honeyberry.
Mhm.
But if you compare this to the older one, which we should do at some point, you don't get the back of the throat acid bite. So it's still got those racy fruit, but it's easier to make a rounder, richer wine. I was able to bring the alcohol level down. Some of those earlier ones I had higher alcohol, which gave that sort of perceived sweetness, like the blackberry mead. But now this is coming in at a more normal wine ratio, and it's an easier drinking wine.
It's a much more. To me, it tastes more like wine. I loved the honeyberry. A lot of people did certainly love the honeyberry, but it was so juicy, and I think
Right,
it was a little
too much.
sweeter.
It was like over the top. It was like a
This
one,
tastes
you know.
like it's more complex. There's more going on. It tastes more like wine.
So you should see what's happening with the variation on this stuff. I'm really excited about it. And that's when this becomes totally oxidized.
Oh yeah,
So this was a mistake. This was a failed tank down in the basement. I had a batch of this wine, this 2100. And I could fit most of it in the tank, but I had a little bit left over, so I had a small tank and I put it in the small tank. And the small tank is a variable capacity, so it's a lid that has a gasket around it that sits on top of the wine.
And the gasket.
Well, the gasket kept failing. And I come in and the lid's just floating loose, the wine is exposed to the air, and I'm like, oh, it's probably ruined. I pump it back out. And it sat, it was just a small amount, maybe 20 liters, 40 liters of wine. So in the end, I'm getting ready to bottle this vintage. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go taste that wine, and if it tastes okay, I'm gonna blend it in with a main batch, I'm gonna process it, put it. And I went over to the tank that this was supposed to be in, and I sampled it and brought it out. Oh no, I must have gotten it wrong. This tastes like Hermitage. So I went back, checked my notes, went back over it, like, this is it. And so this stuff, which I thought was getting ruined because it was exposed to oxygen for so long, tasted like a dry red wine with some tanginess, like the Hermitage. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I kept that separate and I bottled it, 3 cases of it. And we gave one of these
To
to
club
our
members,
2 bottle
yeah.
club members,
Yep.
side by side. So they get
He's-
to try it. 2 of
I'm
them.
not. I don't even know what he's doing anymore. I'm out of the loop.
hmm
So this year, I made our straight honeyberry, and one portion of it I put into an oak barrel, and I'm not topping it off.
Oh, that's exciting.
And I'm gonna let
Chuck
that
taught
go
us
a couple years.
That was fun. It was
This is
great.
from Chuck.
Giving away when we were
So,
I said,
handing out that release was fun. Gary and Paula were here, and I gave it to them, and I was explaining what had happened. I wasn't talking about a failed Northern Berry. I was like, oh, this something different happened with this one, and Ken was pretty excited about it. So you're going to want to reach, and it's great because Paula, I believe, loves the Northern Berry Red, but Gary loves the Hermitage.
Right.
So it was a good
Oh, this
good
is gonna
release
be
for the two of them. I
That's
think,
gonna be
yeah,
great.
they were excited about getting that because it was kind of two of their favorite wines, but very different.
You
We
know
only
what?
have a few minutes left, so we should get quickly on to move on to dessert real
I
quick.
know, it's just one of the things that's so amazing to me is that after making wine for 20 years and exploring all these different things.
Did everybody just hear that? Making wine for 20 years.
I just been like 20 years.
It has been. That's
Yeah.
right.
I think my first
Close
meet,
to it.
My first meet was in '96.
Oh, it's
Whatever that is.
25 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
26 years. Yeah.
20, yeah.
What I find amazing is that I feel like I'm coming up to new wines faster now than
Take
it was
a
in the
very
past.
deeply, right?
It just keeps getting more and more fascinating and exciting every time I think of wine, which is great. It's
I
perfect.
hope that never changes.
There's so much to explore. It feels like, probably in the early days when people crushing and finding that they could make different tasting wines out of the grapes that were growing. They're like, oh, go try this, taste this, and
Oh, what was my name?
yeah.
Rock.
And
Rock.
Oh, chocolate. We have some chocolate.
chocolate. All
I
right.
better finish
All right,
the
so to
pizza
finish us off,
Yes. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of wine in motion right now, physically in motion, and a whole bunch of wine that's in here still coming. That's just formulated. That's just not enough time
first. So exciting.
to get all this stuff done.
I
That's
can't
really
wait.
exciting. Oh yeah, this was a classic story too. I don't know how much. Are we over time? I don't
We have
know.
Yeah, a couple
we
minutes.
have a couple
We-
minutes. You can tell the story.
We can go over.
We can tell the story.
Go over a little bit.
Can we go over? Ask the audience.
I think
This
that's
is an
Audience, do you
important-
mind?
This is an important story because part of the
I love the story.
exploration is to be open-minded, thinking about crafting good tasting beverages and learning from people who have done this before elsewhere, different countries, different times. And so I was reading about making hard cider from a great book back in 2010 or something like that, when we were just getting going, and learning about how people used quince, how they would blend sharps and bitters and different things to make good hard cider. And then there was this whole section about making jacked cider, where you would first you would ferment the apple cider, get 6-7% alcohol, and then you would fill up an empty barrel, an old rum barrel, and put it out in the cold weather in New England and let it freeze. Well, the water in the cider would freeze, concentrating all the flavor and all the alcohol into the middle. And yeah, baby, exactly. That's what everybody said back there in the middle of February when you're feeling a bit.
It's sort of like distillation.
It's sort of like distillation. It's like cryogenic distillation.
It's called jacked.
jacked cider.
Yeah.
Can you
Apple
have you
jack.
seen this? Like I've heard this story and I've heard about Applejack, but I don't think I've ever seen it. Can you find that sort of product in stores ever?
No.
Do you know
no,
anyone
no.
that
this,
makes it?
This isn't happening in stores. This is not legal to do. This is what farmers did in the days of old when they made their own batch of cider.
This is what
And they-
Hermit Woods did back in
Shut-
20 when- We never do that. We would never do that.
Never do
I'm
that.
just saying that, making it up.
We thought we
We thought about what a great
Well,
idea it
not
would be to
sure.
do that.
Well,
Not
might be
experiment,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but honestly, seriously, that is true. This is you need a distiller's license to do what we're
Well,
talking
so
about.
that's my question.
And
Are there
nobody
any
had-
distilleries doing it?
They're just distilling it. They're just using a still
Oh
and
yeah,
distilling
because
it.
that's an easier
They're-
process
they're
than
different.
relying on the
Even
weather.
cider over in Vermont.
Yeah.
No, they're
Yes.
freezing the liquid
So
before
that-
it's
I was gonna say
fermented.
that, But they do it a different way that makes it legal.
And we could do that too.
Right, and we can do that too.
So what are they doing?
Freezing the juice and capturing
Before it's fermented.
so they're increasing the sugar content in the
So they
liquid.
freeze the juice,
Just the juice.
pull the water out by ice, and then
So they're-
have a sweet
Yep.
liquid that they ferment.
And they
Okay.
use
They
a
make-
higher,
they make great cider.
a higher alcohol yeast
Yep.
that can push it up to a higher alcohol.
So we do it the other way around, and getting
We are
around to
efficient.
this wine is we read about this stuff and decided to take our regular Petite Blue wine, probably one of these, and freeze it and cryogenically extract the ice, jacking the alcohol, jacking the flavors, concentrating everything, and creating this stuff that we were going to call Deep Blue.
And we can talk about this because we've already been punished once.
Yeah.
We were told naughty, naughty, naughty. You're
Because
not allowed to do
because
that.
that's not a fermentation process.
It's
a-
cryogenic.
It's a
Right,
distillation.
It's a post-fermentation process of boosting the alcohol. We did that with a crab apple wine. Remember that? Did you find a crab ice? 3 bottles of crab ice?
I don't know what that is.
Oh, I know you would
I can
never.
neither
Yes.
confirm
We
or
should
deny
do
that
we should
that exists.
do an episode.
It doesn't exist.
It does not exist.
No, it doesn't exist. But instead, you found a pretty clever workaround. But that to me seems much more efficient. Because when you make wine, you have
Yeah, it
to.
wasn't clever. It was stupid to do it the way at first because
Yeah.
1, it was illegal. 2, it was a heck of a lot of work.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you make wine, you're mixing the
I mean,
fruit
it was like
with a bunch
why
of
didn't I do
water
that
and doing
before?
all that, and then you have to take the water back out. So
Right.
you just don't add water,
Just
right?
don't add water.
You just
So when
start
we
off
make-
with the
when we make
concentrated
Deep
juice.
Blue legally, we just take a whole bunch of blueberries, little tiny wild blueberries from Maine, from Merrill's farm, and we add some sugar, which the yeast turn into more alcohol through fermentation, which is legal under our license, and we get this nicely concentrated higher alcohol.
Oh my God. And have this with chocolate?
Yep. This is another just
Oh, yeah.
the perfect pairing. Like,
Oh my
of course,
God.
it's delightful on its own, but you pair one of our dessert wines, especially the Deep Blue, with some good dark chocolate or with a flourless chocolate cake, maybe, or
Oh,
something like that. It's
Ice
just
cream.
This is my
It's a
favorite
whole
vintage. on its
new
own. This
wonderful
is a
thing.
20 vintage.
This is reminiscent of the reserve.
Well, I have a barrel
Oh.
of this. We were skinning up gun stock, trying to decide how many blueberries we were going to buy, and deciding if we were going to put up a barrel of the 20 vintage of blueberries. So in 2020, during the pandemic, Maine suffered a drought. And what happens is all of those berries get really tiny and get really high sugar. Terrible for people that sell their fruit based on poundage. Great for winemakers that get better concentration based on the intensity of the fruit. So we decided to go ahead and spend the extra money, even these uncertain times of the pandemic, to put up a barrel because the 20 vintage of fruit was so fantastic.
Absolutely. It's
That wine
always
is still in barrel.
because it's never about the money. It's about getting the best damn
Well, sometimes we
product.
gotta watch that money.
We have to always watch the money, but it's never about the money.
That's crazy good. And you can buy this in the liquor store, right?
this is one.
That's in the club release.
Yeah, and it's in the club release. I really like this 20 vintage and wanted to make sure everybody had one. We did make a good dose of it, and I put up a barrel of it.
This
gotta
was
go
a fun
put a few
We
of those in
release.
decided
my
that
cellar.
skiing after the ski season was closed. And we skinned up to
Yeah, I
those
remember that.
crazy little
Yeah.
section in Gunstock. We got like,
Yeah.
we'd ski like 50 feet, walk over dirt and rocks, ski another 50 feet. You flew all over the place. You had a great yard sale wipe out on one of those. That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. Thank you. All right.
You
we're
had those
done.
fun little skis.
Yeah.
So is that everything in the
That
club
is.
release?
That's it. We're done.
This
That's
is
all
fun.
6
So
wines.
to me, I mean, I've been here now for 6, 7. This might be my 7th release, I think. But I don't think I've been here for a release that didn't have any Petite Blue in it, for example. This seems like it's a little bit more
This is a little
more
different.
unique,
This is
and
a
I think
little
that
out
that's fun for people.
there. I'm trying to keep some variability to it. We have a lot of great club members, and they've been going through and having rosé again, crab apple again.
Yeah, and it's
blue
good to
again,
get our
which
staples in
I'm
there.
gonna
Those are
keep doing because I like each vintage is a little different and all that. But this is a time to really, throw out some cool wines also at,
All
at this scale.
And on that note,
all right.
tune in.
Thank you, everybody.
So guess what?
Good job.
Next week.
Look at all that deep blue we got.
no, oh
Yes.
gosh,
I
that's
win.
like a whole
No.
bottle.
You win
Who won?
again.
I win
Cheers.
again.
We started with empty glasses and Chuck had a full one, and we're ending with empty glasses.
So you know what? I'm going to make an executive decision next week. We're gonna pull some deep dark secrets out of the darkest corners of my cellar.
Oh, boy.
It won't be crab ice.
I don't know what it'll be, but if you want to try some really amazing wines
go
from
live
as
here?
many as 15 or 20 years ago, show up because I have a box of wines that
He
I
had to
dug
clean
out of
out
my
his
cellar.
cellar last week because he bought more wine.
So I'm bringing it
That's
in.
what's happening. That's why
We're gonna drink it.
he passed it off as a gift. He's being so generous, giving me some bottles of
Oh,
wine.
she's
He's
on
just
me.
Cleaning out his
he's just
basement.
cleaning house.
She's
Bob,
on me.
you can clean your cellar anytime for me.
All right, thank you, folks.
Thank you,
We'll see
everybody.
you
Thanks, everyone.
next week, 5:30. Have a
That happened. That was good. That was fun.
I clicked the wrong button at first. Started the intro video for a few
Bonnie
seconds.
said she couldn't hear me.
But I
at all.
got rid of it. It's fine.
Oh, no.
Bonnie said she couldn't hear me at all. But this says that it's working, but she only watches on YouTube.
There was do you know the name Kyle Ducharme?
no.
Who?
So Kyle Ducharme, so he was commenting a whole bunch and he said he was talking about he was the one that asked a couple of good questions and he
Where's
said
my microphone?
he made a 17% mead with just honey, black currants, raspberry, and blueberry, no water used. The mead was 1.070 in finishing gravity, but presented as off-dry due to the massive amount of tannin acid. I don't know who he
Who's
is.
this Kyle guy? Yeah, he's a winemaker.
Someone going nerdy?
Yeah,
There's
definitely.
a few people on here though who've never
Hey.
been on the show, like
Good.
Karen. Who's
Karen,
Karen?
I recognize the name. She's been on occasion. She's
Okay.
not every week, but she's been on for sure.
I don't know who Karen is.
There and then Matt, Christine. That was that.
Priscilla's
that,
not here today.
Priscilla came late. It got up to it was at like 10, 11 at the very beginning, but then most of the time it was more like 7, 8, 6. But I think probably I did hand out a lot of those brochures. I think a good amount of people will probably watch after the fact. Maybe. Oh, that's
I don't know.
My
That's what you
niece
start to
watches
understand
all
with
the time.
marketing.
She never.
you never know.
Is the best initiatives. So you just never know. It's
Why
so
is it
hard.
not here?
It's,
Oh, there
you
it
go
is.
into a
Okay.
corner and you disappear.